Hey guys, welcome to our Facebook Live today. We're doing a Monday Facebook Live instead of a Friday or Thursday Facebook Live because we actually have a special guest today, and we have actually this is a first time where we've actually brought a current client into our program. And wherever you're watching from, if you can tell me, great. It's good to know my demographics. And we're adding, let me add. There's already a guest in this podcast. Oh, there you are.
Good,
Hi,
good
Cathy.
afternoon. Hi,
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm great. Awesome. So this is for our Healing Autoimmune Disease Naturally group, which there's over, like, it's close to almost 1,500 members here. And today what I wanted to talk about was wherever you guys are watching from, I would love for you to tell me where you're watching from, what city or what state you're from or what part of the world you're from. It's great to know my demographics. I'm Dr. Maggie Yu. I'm a functional medicine physician that specializes in autoimmune disease, hormones, and gut health. And what we have is we have our flagship program that we offer is the Healing Autoimmune Disease Naturally program. That's an 8-week online program of which Cathy is part of. And
I am.
we were just talking on in our mastermind group on last Wednesday, and I asked to see if there were any big wins that people had. And Cathy has a huge win that she shared with the group, and I thought it'd be great for her to share that win with our larger group here. So tell us what you shared with us that was a huge win for you last Wednesday.
So basically, I'm a diabetic. I'm on an insulin pump. I take insulin around the clock, and then I also take insulin based on my meals and what I consume. Since joining, the only thing I've changed is I've started taking vitamin D because that's low. Surprise, surprise. And then, right? And then I went gluten-free. So I have been able to drop my insulin drastically. I go back and have my labs done March 5th for March 9th appointment. So I'm super excited to see what my A1C will be then. But yeah, I've been able to drop my insulin, which, is better on my budget, my pocket, my planning, my everything, because I'm not feeding that insulin all the time.
When you say drop your insulin dramatically, how much insulin would you say total you were on a day, and how much are you on now?
I was probably on 37 units a day total, both of them, and I'm probably down to 26 a day.
That's quite a bit. So you dropped your insulin by about 30%.
Mm-hmm.
So this is an interesting topic I want to bring up because a lot of people and diabetics, I think, is a great example of this. So I talk about food mapping and food intolerance testing a lot. And last week, Frankie and I talked about a case with a gentleman named John with Tourette's, and it turned out that he had all these different food intolerances, which we call the trifecta, which I remember was dairy, gluten, and eggs, right? And so we were saying how by testing, we knew that those were an underlying cause of a lot of his autoimmunity, malabsorption, and his Tourette's neurological brain symptoms. Now, it's interesting on you was that we, as part of our online program, you're going through food mapping, and interestingly, your food test came back
Negative.
Clean. And I think this is a really important point to bring up, which is that the point of, like, a lot of times I call it, people end up barking up wrong trees or red herrings because they don't have the data. I love the fact that a huge part of our program is data, data, data. And for you, we don't have to bark up the wrong tree of you eliminating 50% of the food on the planet, because we know, based on the food testing of 100 of the most common foods in the US diet that triggers autoimmunity, that you were negative on everything, correct?
Everything, yes.
And this brings up a really good point, which is about the role of gluten in autoimmune disease. If you guys are happy for Cathy and you want to learn yourself how to actually lower your insulin 30% by some simple steps, give us a heart, give us some love. We'd love to know that you're enjoying this broadcast and you want this for yourself. Because this is a really important point I want to bring up, and that's this, which is that gluten, I've talked about in autoimmune disease, has a very specific role. So regardless of whether you test positive or negative for gluten in your food mapping, and that's something we teach in our food mapping program and on our autoimmune disease program, is this, is that gluten has a separate mechanism for triggering autoimmune attack because of the way the gluten molecule looks, which means that gluten molecule looks a little bit like human. So what happens is when you have an autoimmune disease already, when you consume gluten, your body looks at that gluten and thinks, oh my gosh, hundreds of places for me to have autoimmune attack. So it jumps all of the gluten. But the problem is not only is gluten in your gut being attacked, all the other targets that your autoimmune disease is attacking is going crazy. So what happens in diabetes, yes, diabetes is an autoimmune disease, is that there's an autoimmune attack against your pancreas, Cathy. And so what happens is that every time you consume gluten, and you know this, how much gluten does it take to trigger a full-blown autoimmune attack?
Very little.
Fingernail full. So you prior to this, you had been a diabetic for how many years?
3 years.
You've been a diabetic for 3 years. You've even been hospitalized for your diabetes, correct?
Yeah, that's how we found it.
It's so severe. So over this 3-year period of time, did anyone even talk to you about the role of gluten in autoimmune disease?
No.
Okay. So here's the interesting I found is that if I took Cathy A and I have Cathy B, and we talked about this in our mastermind group, and you have Cathy A eating exactly the same number of carb grams as Cathy B. But the only difference is one group, Cathy A, was gluten-free, and one group, Cathy B, was not gluten-free. But they both ate the same amount of carb grams. What do you think happened to their insulin levels? And this is what happened, right? Cathy A removed the gluten. Cathy B didn't remove the gluten. Are you Cathy A now who removed the gluten? Yes. And you've been Cathy B in the past where you just lowered your carbs. Were you able to drop your insulin level 30% just by lowering your carbs?
No.
Because you hit a brick wall, because you didn't address the autoimmunity. So now Cathy U, now Cathy A now, where you've actually, even with the exact same amount of carbs, but just removed the gluten. So you removed the autoimmune attack against your pancreas. We're at a 30% reduction in your insulin use. And how quickly did you notice this change?
Within the first week, I was able to lower my insulin at night because it would drop at night. And then I learned to eat my little snack before bed, thanks to Frankie. And then it just continued just a little bit. I know, sorry. I didn't want to feed it, so I wasn't snacking. So that was part of it is everybody's different, but I've learned and I've been able to do it.
And I mean, and one of the things we talked about, Cathy, was blood sugar. A huge part of our online program for healing autoimmune disease is we spent a long time talking about blood sugar balance. And that's not just for diabetics in the program. Across the board, all people with autoimmune disease actually also have same problems with handling high or low blood sugar. So you mentioned the whole eating at night. And the thing is like conventional wisdom is going to tell you don't eat before bed, right?
Right.
What have you found since you actually started eating a high protein or a high fat snack before bed? What happened to your morning insulin, morning blood sugar levels?
It's stable. I wake up, I'm normal, and I don't have to eat as soon as I wake up, or my pump doesn't wake me up to eat.
So it's very counterintuitive, some of the concepts that we talk about, which is that if you actually have blood sugar balance throughout the day, and then you actually have a little bit of a protein or high fat snack at night, it actually keeps your blood sugar stable throughout the night. And one of the things that we talk about when your blood sugar is more stable throughout the night, people sleep better. How's your sleep?
I sleep well. If I eat I do find if I eat a higher carb meal, obviously it's spikes and then I drop a little more. But if I stay stable, I'm good. And I sleep through the night.
Yeah, so what you're saying is when you do a high carb meal, you tend to sleep not as well. Correct.
Yes.
So that's the whole issue. That's the whole piece around blood sugar. That's really, I think, for me, a lot of times you have people who treat autoimmune disease who are not looking at all these pieces of the pie with blood sugar, with food intolerance, food mapping, with the role of gluten. And I mean, and here's something for you. I mean, you were a diabetic for 3 years, and so being gluten-free was new for you. How did you find the process going through the online program with being gluten-free? How was that process for you?
It was easy, actually. Frankie gave us some recipes, and so right away I started doing it. I know, Frankie rocks.
She's right behind
Right away
us.
I started doing it.
I'm watching. She's doing this.
We probably.
I don't know what she's. What are you doing, Nay? Go ahead.
My husband and I have been. We've probably had the nut breakfast. Like it's like an oatmeal without oats, and we've probably had that 12 times since she put that on there. I did a bunch of it yesterday. I put it in glass mason jars. So all I had to do was dump it in a bowl and simple serving, served it up, ready to go. I fed all my kids, all of them so far. I know.
And this is interesting. I mean, and a little bit of an aside is that your spouse, your partner, is a physician as well. And it's definitely one of the things I address is that it's something like I was a family practitioner the first 10 years of my practice. And your husband has been a family practice physician his whole entire career, and he recently retired. And it's just not a paradigm that physicians are taught. He's a well-meaning physician which school did he graduate out of?
He went to UC Riverside, and then he went to
Riverside.
USC.
I'm UCLA. Sorry. But it's just one of those things that as well-meaning physicians, and we treat diabetes, we aren't trained to really think about a lot of these disease states as actually a big autoimmune thing going on. We're not trained to think about the role of gluten. We're not trained to really dietary training that, he's had and I've had. I talk about it when I was at UCLA. The limit of the diet training that I got was 30 minutes in my 4 years of med school. Yeah. And then I don't know how long it was when he went through.
It was probably less when he went through.
You're aging both of us.
I know. Sorry.
That's currently though how med school still really is that physicians get diet training very little. And do you know how long I spent to learn about drugs to treat illness? A whole year was just to learn drugs, pharmacology during my med school. And yet, myself and your husband included, going to some of the best schools in the country, UCLA, UC Riverside, we barely got 30 minutes of dietary training. Right? So I wanted to pull Frankie back, here because, you're crediting her with the whole going gluten-free and her nut and seed porridge. So I just wanted to bring her on and have her just say hi to you.
Hey, Cathy. It's nice to get to see your face in person.
Nice to see you.
I hear you on the mastermind calls, and we got to do that for the first time this last week. So
I know.
I think that this is so wonderful for you to be, coming up and sharing your story with the group, because these are things that people really need to know, especially when we're thinking about something like diabetes that I feel like very few people even recognize as an autoimmune condition, right? So it's like, did anybody talk to you about gluten, as a role in reversing our autoimmune disease? Or did anybody even talk to you about diabetes being an autoimmune disease? Is a further question to think about.
Yeah, they did. They did, but they didn't go in depth as to what were some of the other things from it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So you're loving the nut and seed porridge.
We do. We love it. And like I say, I fed all my kids, I have 23, 21, and a 17-year-old at home, and they've all eaten it. So
that's wonderful. Yeah, it's a wonderful recipe. You grind up a bunch of nuts and seeds and some coconut and some flaxseed and chia seed, and then all you have to do is add hot water. So it's one of my favorite go-to recipes for being gluten-free, for being fast, for people who travel. It's a great one. Yep. What?
Yeah, my daughter has an hour commute.
Mm-hmm. What are some other?
And so she's taking.
Nice. What are some other dietary changes that you feel like, as far as taking gluten out, what do you notice what do you have more room for in the diet?
I've actually learned more about nuts, adding nuts and coconut and that kind of thing. Being low carb for so long, I've always made substitute breads, quick breads, and those kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
But I just have an even feeling all the time. I don't have the extreme hunger. I don't have the hunger pains. I mean, I just don't have them.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. I'm so happy to hear that. It's what we call striking an even keel. You have an even keel with your blood sugar now. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to seeing you on the next mastermind call, Cathy. Thanks so
I will
much
be
for
there if
being here.
I can possibly make it.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yes.
So I was just going to say, Cathy, one thing that's coming up, I think, because you're approaching week 5, week 6 of the program, is we haven't even gone over hormones yet. So that's going to be a really fascinating thing that we're going to be working on, because you're already talking about how by going gluten-free and already starting vitamin D, that you're already starting to sleep through the night better. And many of us women that have autoimmune disease are not aware of the role of autoimmunity in attacking our ovaries and our ovarian hormones. So I'm super excited because I think you're just now watching some of those videos on hormones, and then we're going to be going over some of your results live on our mastermind call coming up on Wednesday. So what's interesting about the role of vitamin D and why you immediately started sleeping better with vitamin D is that vitamin D, guys, is not just a vitamin. It's a hormone. Any of you that know that, please give me a heart, give me a wow face, okay? I just posted a video on vitamin D for you guys that I did a couple months ago, and it talks all about all the different wonderful things that vitamin D does for our bodies, and especially in autoimmune disease. It's a big hormone balancer. So awesome, Cathy. The reason that you started to take the reason you're sleeping better is there's a couple mechanisms. One mechanism is when your blood sugar is stable throughout the night, your body doesn't think you're dying from low blood sugar in the middle of the night, causing you to wake up over and over again. So eating that protein and fat snack before bed is really crucial to keep your body from thinking it's dying. Number 2 is that having steady blood sugar throughout the night allows your body to continue to make hormones throughout the night instead of shutting it down. If your body thinks you're dying, it's going to shut off the hormone making, and then you're going to have basically waking up with super low hormones, which is really common in people with autoimmune disease. And the number 3 mechanism is that when you have really low vitamin D, and people don't understand that optimal levels of vitamin D for people with autoimmune disease is really around 80 to 100. Vitamin D is actually a hormone, and there's a vitamin D receptor on every cell of your body that basically allows, so there's a vitamin D receptor on your ovaries to make ovarian hormones. There's a vitamin D receptor on your thyroid, on your pancreas to help you process insulin. So you're actually helping all these different hormonal functions by taking simply vitamin D. And what dose is right, we have to measure it, people. That's why you want to work with a provider who orders these tests and helps you understand what the functional values are. So I'm looking forward to our week 4 and 5 with you, Cathy, and you're going to get to see what your hormones are going to do next for you.
Yay.
Yay. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Sorry it took us so long to get on.
No, you rock. Thank you, my dear.
Thank you.
So guys, this is Cathy's just one example of one of the clients that we're working with right now in our Healing Autoimmune Disease Naturally program, which is our online flagship program. So if you're wanting more information about it, there's a link that's posted on top in the comments and also in the description of it. If you want to watch my online training on what our program is about, all the different pieces of the pie. So very big for me in dealing with autoimmune diseases is that there are many pieces that needs to be covered to actually help reverse autoimmune disease. And it's really heartwarming and huge for me to actually see someone like Cathy, who just within like a matter of 2 to 3 weeks had her insulin dose drop by 30%, which is huge for her. So this is not uncommon, and this is not even unusual of a result. I see 30 to 50% reduction in insulin use all the time. And this doesn't just apply to diabetes. This applies to every autoimmune disease, all the different medications that you're on for autoimmune disease. So thank you. Wherever you're watching from, if you can give me a heart shape, if you can give me a wow face, please share this on your personal page so that people that you feel could benefit from it who have autoimmune disease or who have diabetes or hormone disturbances. That would be great. So thanks a lot and have a great day, guys.
Lupus, lung fibrosis,
Hashimoto's thyroiditis,
fibromyalgia, AS, which is a form of arthritis,
Epstein-Barr, extremely fatigued.
pretty much zero joint pain.
Much more happy.
I don't have brain fog anymore. How much weight I have lost.
I want to see remission.
Maggie and her approach is very different than the traditional doctor.
I'm a totally different person.
I got a better understanding of what those intolerances were.
You're not alone.
The community is, I'm learning from everyone else's issues.
It's not just helped me, it's helped my entire family.
We are transformed.
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 Join the movement and transform your autoimmune naturally today.